guys, I'm Amy Wadsworth of 804 Sycamore. Thank you so much for checking out my channel. And in this video, I'm going to show you how I made a barn door. It's a very simple barn door, and it's going to be installed right here at the top of our stairs. Our upstairs is a bonus space, and we use it for crafting, TV, and we have a Murphy bed up here and a full bathroom. So it's also our guest space, but currently our guests have no way to close the door, have privacy, block out sound or anything like that. So I'm really excited to show you just how easy this is and the hardware that I used. So give me a thumbs up if you like the video, and be sure to subscribe and leave any comments. If you have questions, I do check and I will answer. So let's get going and make this barn door.
Okay guys, so the first step is to measure your opening. And once you have those measurements, you're going to add 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch to the height for your barn door, and then 4 to 5 inches to the width. And that will tell you how many 1x6 primed boards you're going to need. For my door, I needed 7, and that gave me about 4 inches wider than my door opening. And so what I did is I got my measurements and then I stacked them. I wanted them all perfectly the same length, and so I cut one fresh edge on one end, and then I turned it over, used my carpenter square to make sure they're all lined up, and then made my second cut. So you can use any boards you want, but I decided, since I'm painting this barn door, primed boards just made sense. Next, you're going to want to lay them out on a very flat surface. I found that there were some spacing and gaps between my boards, so I would try to line them up the best way to have the fewest gaps possible. You could run them through a planer, you could have an extra large clamp to get them together. Otherwise, it's beyond my expertise at this stage in the game. So I didn't need this barn door for privacy, so I was okay with some spacing. So after I got them all lined up, I made sure the ends were lined up. It helps to use an extra long level to do this part, but this will make sure that each board is in place and it's ready for the next step, which is glue. So when I was gluing each board together, I used my finger to kind of smooth the glue. I did that in the beginning, and then I stopped doing that, and I just used less glue. You don't want it squeezing out because you can't flip the whole thing over and wipe it clean, and to me it is such a pain to sand off glue. So the glue is just to give it extra strength, help keep it together, but honestly, most of my glue did separate. So I don't know if that was from going from a hot garage to a cooler interior, but anyways, use wood glue, but it's not the only force keeping it together. I used some 2x10 boards, 2x8s. They're really heavy. I was just trying to really keep all the boards flat, keep them down. But again, it's not going to be perfect, and I realized that. So anyways, your next step is you're going to cut a 1x4, the width of your door, and then you're going to use 1-inch brad nails to attach into every single 1x6. Now you're going to want to make sure it's the exact width. You don't want anything overhanging on any seam, because we're going to trim out the door to cover up the seam. So I mean, it has to line up perfect. If it doesn't, you need to go back to your saw and get it right. I liked using this carpenter square. It just really helped me get it, and you can kind of feel it with your fingers too. If there's any glue that squeezes out, wipe that up now so you don't have to sand it later and mess with it. So after you get your 1x4 on the top, you're going to measure the bottom and then glue and brad nail. So with the top and bottom in place. You can see I used more boards to really just hold down everything. I noticed some of the boards were bowing at this point. We'll talk about that later. But for now, I measured and then I cut my 1x4. I added some glue, and then you're just going to take your brad nailer, again with the 1-inch nails, 18 gauge. And some people say, the fewer nails, the better, it's less to patch. Wasn't too worried about that because I can sand it pretty smooth and then the paint covers everything. But do what you feel comfortable with. After you do one side, make sure you measure the other side. My boards were all pretty close to the same, but with wood, it's organic, it moves, so just make sure to measure twice, cut once, and again, glue and brad nail. Okay, so with your door framed with the 1x4s, it's time to trim it out with 1x2 primed boards. One end will be a 45-degree angle, and notice I'm cutting with the 1-inch on top. That's because the 2-inch side is going to wrap around the door and cover up our seams. So one end will be 45-degree angle, and the other end will be 90-degree. Because the bottom of the board doesn't need the trim. The seam won't be seen, and it would just make the door that much taller for no reason. So we're just going to trim the sides and top. So I liked cutting my 45-degree first. 45-degree angles are a little tricky for me, and I don't like cutting a million times. So I cut first, and then I found my 90-degree mark. So that's the way I do it. If you're really good at 45-degree angles, awesome. So then after I have one side done, then I can cut the top, and the top will have two 45-degree angles. And then with your final side, again, 145 at the top and a 90-degree cut at the bottom. And then you'll glue and nail. And it will stick out just a hair over, but that's okay. Keep it flat on the surface, so it will just stick out a little bit on top, and it will be flat on the bottom so that it can all lay flat while it's drying and while you paint it. The flatter you can keep the door, the better, just because the wood is only 1 inch thick, and it will bow and space and move. So for this step where I'm adding the trim piece, it would have been ideal to have a helper, one person to kind of hold and stabilize while I attached the trim, but it was doable and I didn't make any mistakes. And so it is light enough of a door that I could do these steps by myself. And so here we go. I'm adding some glue and attaching it and just brad nailing it. Now, I did wait 24 hours for the glue to dry. It probably didn't need that much, but it is the summertime, it's warmer, and I just really wanted to make sure I gave the glue a chance to dry, because once this door is fully constructed, I'm taking it inside to paint, because I didn't want to drag this up the stairs, paint it and ding it up or whatever. So I did paint upstairs. It's too hot outside anyways. But it's kind of up to you. For me, it was a seasonal thing. So, like I said, I can carry this door by myself, but again, it's probably smart to have a helper, team lift. So, but just so you know, it is not an incredibly heavy door, so it is manageable. So at this point, I thought it was time to notch out the finger pole, and this is the hardware that needs to be flush enough that it can slide behind the wall. Unfortunately, my boards, I don't know if you can see in this shot, but they started bowing and moving and spacing, and so I decided to add a diagonal support board. But even that wasn't enough, so I ended up fixing that later. But for now, my husband said, mark out where you want it. And then he went and then he traced the inside oval, which is the exact space that he needed to notch out. He has done this before, and so I was more than happy letting him do this part. The tool he is using, one side is flat and one side is angled, and it just helps to really curve up that wood. He says he's not an expert, so he didn't have any tips except that this tool is extremely sharp and to be careful, but otherwise it's a pretty straightforward process. He did this rather quickly, and you just need to go deep enough so that your hardware can sit flush in there, but obviously not too deep that you reach the other side. So check that dimension before you start. So in this shot, I am patching up all my nail holes, and I like this wood filler because it starts out pink, and when it's dry, it's wood color. It doesn't matter to me what color it is, but I do like that it changes color so that I know I can sand everything. And as you can see, I have my diagonal support in here, which I end up ripping up because it wasn't enough. So what started as a pretty typical barn door look, it was pretty frustrating, but I went ahead and I ripped it up. You know, I glued it and nailed it, so I had to be very careful, and then I had to spend some time removing the glue, sanding it. Make sure you wear a mask and eye protection when you're sanding. But I actually love this mistake because, as you can see on that left corner, none of those boards are supported, and then the right corner, none of those boards are supported. And so it didn't quite do the trick, but I love the look I ended up with. I put 3 boards horizontally across. I made sure they're evenly spaced, and you guys, it looks so great. It looks good with the rest of the home. It totally supported all of my 1x6 boards, and so structurally it's great, and design wise I love it. So here I am I cut my boards. I cut each one separate, measure twice, cut once, right? I have them all set up roughly where they go, but then I'm really getting that measurement to make sure. And I decided to add glue just to the spots where the 1x4 board is going to hit the 1x6, because I don't want wood squishing out in between. So glue it, nail it, and you're good to go. So that's it. That's the construction. I didn't prime the door. I just painted it, added the hardware. My next video will be about installation. Once that is done, I will link it in the description, but there it is, you guys. It works beautifully. It has soft close. We absolutely love it. And as you can tell, if someone's walking up the stairs and they see through one of the spaces, they're just gonna see wall or whatever. There's no privacy concerns. So for the door handle, Google says 36 inches to the center, and so we just followed that, and it feels very comfortable. So here I am going up the stairs. This is a guest space, a TV room, a craft room. I do video editing up here, and so having this door to add some extra soundproofing is awesome. And the soft close is a charm. I absolutely love it. So if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe and get alerts so you can get the hardware installation video. Thanks so much.